Now we have Tiina Maria Mäkelä from the University of Jyväskylä in Finland. Tiina is the leader of this project, and she will tell us everything about the project. Welcome, Tiina.
Thank you. Not everything, but something. Let me see. So, and thank you very much for the hosts for inviting us to this beautiful seminar. So we have this, as Kristín already explained, this project called Impact of Learning Environment, Design on Teaching, Learning and Wellbeing, a Nordic perspective, funded by Nord Plus Horizontal. And here we work with the research institutes, municipalities and companies. From Finland, I represent University of Jyväskylä, Innovative Learning Environments Research Group. And then we have a city of Helsinki, some of you might know that city. And then two consultancy companies, Oppimaisema and Positiimi. And from Norway, we have University of Oslo and Nord Consult as a consultancy company. From Denmark, Royal Danish Academy and the municipality of Gladsaxe. And then Sweden, we have Ecophone, the acoustic design company. And then from Iceland, as you already got to know, we have representatives from the University of Iceland and then from the city of Reykjavik. That we are very thankful that we can have this final seminar here in Iceland. And thank you we learned a lot about your school design already. So thanks for the introductions. And my colleagues will be presenting, they work later on, so they will also introduce themselves. So I'm not mentioning anyone here by name. But just shortly, what were the project aims? We were interested in having new knowledge and innovative methods on the impact of learning environment, of teaching and learning, and of course well-being has always been our interest. We think you can't really have good teaching and learning without well-being. They are very much interrelated. Maybe it's a kind of a Nordic concept, I would say. And the other thing, as you saw, we have this multi-professional collaboration. We have researchers, educational providers on national and municipal level, and then you could call them industry, different companies and consultants working in this sector, both architectural knowledge and educational knowledge. And so it has been really interesting to see how we understand one another and how we collaborate. We are learning that. We started, so this is a 3-year project. We started with the literature review. We wanted to know what is going on in the Nordic research on learning environments, what are the strengths and gaps in our research. And so we created a database of Nordic literature about what is known about the learning environments, and on the other hand, what are the methods that we've been using in our research. My colleagues will present some of the findings of the literature review later on. And then the other activity was pilot studies. We have had, first of all, we had this Australian-led LSI pilot, particularly in Finland. And then after that, we had a pilot, we selected some we were piloting some research instruments in all Nordic countries. And my colleagues will also present that later on. And so this is the publication that will be published soon. We are now finishing with the project, collecting still some data from Iceland. And so we were thinking that the good time for publication of this is when the schools are back from the holidays, so probably in August, September. So you will hear about the publication. And what we present here is kind of a sneak peek to see what will be in our publication later on. And as my colleagues are presenting the other work, I thought I will shortly explain how everything started kind of thing, and this interesting connection we have with the Australia and New Zealand and that area. Because in fact, most of us belong to a Nordic association that was part of an Australian-led innovative learning environments and student experience scoping study. So this is the connection. We were the Nordics in that international study, led by Professor Wesley Imms and Julia Morris from the Learning Environment Applied Research Network. So the idea came basically from that. And in this Australian-led project, the aim was to create and pilot a toolkit to create this kind of evidence database to understand the learning environment design impact. And so we agreed that as a part of the LED Nordic project, we would pilot this toolkit in a Nordic country. There were 10 different countries piloting this toolkit and in 20 pilot schools. And so we did this pilot in Finland, and the other Nordic partners were as an expert review board to see, we evaluated how this toolkit works in our Nordic context. This toolkit has, you can see there's a space design and use survey, like the space typologies and teaching approaches and so on. And then there's a school profile audit. Then there's a learning environment assessment, mapping the learning environments, student and space survey for students' their perception, and then the teacher mind frame survey for teachers. So this is quite a complex set of different research instruments. And so the pilot started when this project started in May 24. Actually, our Australian colleagues visited us in Jyväskylä in Finland, and we worked with the translating, adapting the toolkit to Finnish context in Finnish language. And then we received this training from the coordinators, how to use the tool. And we did the pilots at the University of Jyväskylä Teacher Training School with our primary school and secondary school. You know, our universities have our own teacher training schools. And so then we were collecting the feedback from the directors, from the teachers and learners, like, does this tool work? So, you know, this is piloting the instrument, not yet the actual research. This is the picture where we discussed the toolkit with the school directors. And I'm just showing you some examples of the results. This is from the student perception part. So we had one primary school classroom and one secondary school classroom. Here you can see how the space looked like. So these children were asked about their experiences, about the school environment in general, about their specific spaces they use, and their participation in the space. And here you can see the logic is that this dark green bluish is this pilot group from Finland, and the other green is like all pilot schools together. So you can see that they were quite positive, even a bit more positive about the environments than the average. So they were happy with their spaces, we could say. I'm not going to go to the details, but here you can see that there was a positive impression that they learn and they feel good in those spaces. And then we had a secondary school pilot. You can see here the space. Of course, in secondary school, they move around different spaces, but this was the pilot space we organized the study. And here, well, still positive, but you can see a little bit lower, the mean was a little bit lower. So they still learn and feel good, but maybe we're a bit more critical than the primary school students. And here, again, this was only one group of students, so we don't really know. But we were just speculating that maybe it's even the teenagers are just more critical, so we don't know. It might be that they were a little bit more negative, let's say. Or one interesting thing that we would really like to study more is that the secondary school is a corridor school, and the primary is more modern with the breakout spaces and stuff. And it would be really interesting to know whether actually to do the same study with a bigger number of students, whether it actually influences if you are in the traditional corridor school or in a bit more open spaces. So, but this was a pilot, so in order to have real responses to the question, we should have a bigger study, and we really hope to have that in the future. But okay, so this was the Australian collaboration, and then we were thinking with our Nordic colleagues that, okay, what would we like to do in every single Nordic country? And so we decided to take some of these research instruments and evaluate them in our contexts. And the research question was that what are the potential affordances, so action possibilities that these open, flexible, or enclosed spaces can give us for teaching, learning, and well-being. And you see, we got inspired by these Australian models of this closedness and opening and closing, and then on the other hand, the completely open spaces. You see the famous typologies from Dewey and Fisher. And then on the other hand, this level of publicness and privateness or aloneness or togetherness. So we were particularly paying attention on this. We piloted one school per country. Most of them were recently renovated or newly constructed, except that we wanted to have Hellerup School here from Denmark because it's kind of an exemplary early example of the open schools plan design. We analyzed floor plans, and we had some observation frameworks, and then the main thing was we did the photo documentation of these spaces. Okay, here you see our pilot group. We had it's kind of a finding that we had Hellerup stairs in all Nordic countries, so something that we share in our school design. So we did this visit, and later on my colleagues will explain more how these visits were and what were some of the findings. Okay, yep, I'm done. Thank you.